Meeting called to order at 5:10 PM.
Welcome, everyone, to the September 30th, 2025 special meeting of the Richmond Rent Board. As a courtesy to others, we ask that you please silence your cell phones or any type of noise devices. Also, I have a few reminders regarding public comments. Individuals who would like to address the board, a request to speak card must be given to the assistant clerk before the announcement of the agenda item. If you would like to speak on an item not listed on the agenda or on the consent calendar, you must do so under the public forum. Please refer to the Rent Board meeting agenda list of items or for public comment posted above the table located in front of the chambers. Also, this meeting is being interpreted. We ask anyone addressing the board to speak clearly and slowly for interpretation. The first item on the agenda is pledge to the flag. Please join me in pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is roll call. For the purposes of the recording, may I please get an audible roll call from Rent Board members and staff? Board Member Espinoza.
Here.
Board Member Willis.
Here.
Vice Chair Cantor.
Here.
Chair Tipton.
Here.
Executive Director Nicholas Traylor.
Here.
Deputy Director Fred Tran.
Here.
And General Counsel Charles Oshanuga.
Here.
For the record, Board Member Height is absent. The next item on the agenda is Statement of Conflict of Interest. Are there any? Okay. Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is Agenda Review. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Are there any changes to the agenda from staff?
Turn on your mic, Chair. Thank you.
Are there any changes to the agenda from staff?
No changes.
Are there any other changes to the agenda from board members?
Okay, hearing none. The next item on the agenda is public forum. Tonight, we have one speaker. The speaker shall be allowed up to 4 minutes to address the board. When you're called to address the board, stating your name and city of residence is optional. Please terminate your address to the board when your time expires. We ask that you keep your comments respectful and appropriate. The only speaker is Mr. Cordell Hendler.
Hey. So, good evening, Chair Tipton, board members. For the record, Cordell Hendler with some wonderful news to share with you all. So, number one, I would like to invite the Rent Board to the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference on December the 4th, hosted by the City of Pinole, with more information forthcoming. But you must, I repeat, you must RSVP ahead, so that way they can track how many people will be in attendance. So it's $70 per person, and that includes dinner. So location to be announced at a later time. So that's one. Number two is, for the record, it was my idea to have the special meetings, the special hearings, be placed on separate the agendas, because having it on a regular agenda doesn't make sense, because we try to take care of the hearings first, then take care of some regular business, and I do thank staff for that. Number three is coming up on October 24th. You are all invited to the Council of Industries boat tour at the Harbor Masters building, and this year there will be a host bar, so you can get as many drinks and all the good stuff. So you just have to RSVP ahead. And then the last thing is coming up on the 17th of October. You're all invited to the Richmond Rotary Club weekly meeting, and our guest speaker will be Cheryl Cotton, who will be sharing with us about what her vision is for the school district. So that should be a lot of good discussion. Hopefully we get a good turnout. And I'll save my comments for the proclamation.
That's the only and last speaker. The next item on the agenda is to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'll take a vote. So, sorry, I forgot to read who took a motion. Motion by Board Member Willis, and the second one is by Vice Chair Cantor. I'll take a vote. Board Member Espinoza,
Yes.
Board Member Willis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cantor,
Yes.
and Chair Tipton.
Yes.
Motion passes with Board Member Height absent. Okay. Before I announce the item, I'm going to ask the parties to please come forward to the front of the chambers. We'll have the appellant over to my left and the We're moving to item G1 under consideration of appeals. Item G1 is an appeal to petition number RC 23-T176. This matter concerns an appeal of the hearing examiner's decision that awarded tenants $17,496.71. On appeal, the appellant argues that at the prior rent board meeting, the rent board ordered the matter to be remanded on the issue of base rent. The remand was to allow respondents to provide adequate evidence of the base rent. Despite the board's allowance of additional evidence, the respondents failed to submit any evidence. Thus, the record remains the same with the same concerns and issues found at the prior hearing. There are no speakers on this item, public speakers on this item.
First, I would like to remind parties and the public that this appeal hearing is being interpreted, and we ask that you speak clearly and slowly for interpretation. This is a landlord appeal to the hearing examiner's decision. For the record, please identify yourselves, state your name and your position on this case. We will start with the appellant and then the respondent.
Yes, good evening. Andrew Gabriel, attorney for the appellants Anselmo Ocampo and Ada Ocampo.
Respondent.
This is Silvino Ramirez.
Estela Flores. Well, not yet. They just announced their name, but they are. So they're going to need the microphone? Yeah, they need
Perdón? Okay. Thank you.
You'll just speak when they speak.
Thank you all. Before we begin, let's go over a few appeal hearing procedures. First, the legal staff will give a summary of the case. Next, each party or their representative will have 7 minutes to address the board. Any party addressing the board who requires interpretation, the allowable times shall be doubled. Because the respondent has requested interpretation, the time limits are as follows. Appellant starts first and will have 10 minutes to present his or her case on appeal. Next, the respondent will be given 14 minutes to present their rebuttal. Finally, appellant will be given 4 additional minutes to close. The board has discretion to allow more time if needed. As a reminder, this is not a de novo hearing, therefore no new evidence can be submitted. Anything said tonight should be based on the issue raised on appeal and exclusively on the record that was already before the hearing examiner. Parties may discuss or comment upon legal matters in questions and other pertinent issues raised by the appeal. The board must disregard any discussion or comment regarding factual matters that were not in the record before the hearing examiner or officially noticed in the hearing documents. After all parties have spoken, the board will discuss and then make a decision. We will now hear from legal staff.
Good evening, Chair Timpton and members of the Rent Board, Charles Oshiniga, General Counsel. I just want to make sure before I begin the summary whether or not the parties were able to understand the chair's instructions, because I noticed that they just received those headphones probably late in your instructions. So is there a way the interpreter can ask if they heard the entirety of the chair's statement?
No.
Okay, so if you don't mind, Madam Chair, thank you.
I'm going to go over the appeal hearing procedures. So first, legal staff will give a summary of the case. Next, each party will have 7 minutes to address the board. Any party addressing the board who requires interpretation, the allowable times shall be doubled. Because respondent has requested interpretation, the time limits today are as follows. Appellant starts first and will have 10 minutes to present their case on appeal. Next, respondent will be given 14 minutes to present your rebuttal. And finally, appellant will be given 4 additional minutes to close. The board has the discretion to allow more time if needed. As a reminder, this is not a de novo hearing, meaning no new evidence can be submitted. Anything said tonight should be based on the issue raised on appeal and exclusively on the record that was already before the hearing examiner. Parties may discuss or comment upon legal matters in question and any other pertinent issue raised by the appeal, but the board will disregard any discussion or comment regarding factual matters not previously in the record before the hearing examiner or officially noticed in the hearing documents. After all parties have spoken, the board will discuss and then make a decision. First, we'll hear from legal staff.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, Charles Oshiniga, General Counsel. Good evening, Chair Tipton and members of the Rent Board. This is a case that comes before us on remand, so my summary will not be as lengthy as it usually is. We heard the same case in November of last year. In that case, the hearing examiner awarded the tenants $37,369.43. The appellant only appealed the portion of the hearing examiner's decision that awarded the tenants $24,574.05. So the remaining $12,795.38 was confirmed by the Rent Board and ordered to be paid to the tenants either in restitution or in the form of rent reduction. So just again, the tenants either have already received that or are entitled to receive that. So that's not before us today. In the prior case, my recommendation was to reverse the hearing examiner's award of $24,574.05 because the tenants failed to meet their burden of proof. Specifically, they failed to establish the base rent. At that meeting, the Rent Board decided to not go with that recommendation. The Rent Board decided to remand the matter back to the hearing examiner to allow the record to be reopened for the tenants to be able to submit evidence of their base rent and for the landlord to be able to submit counter evidence. The instructions were limited to base rent issues. After the record was closed, the hearing examiner received the instructions from the Rent Board, reopened the case for 30 days, reopened the record for 30 days, allowing the parties to submit additional evidence into the record concerning base rent. The tenants failed to submit any evidence into the record concerning base rent, and the landlords did not submit any counter evidence into the record concerning base rent. Despite that failure of introducing any new evidence, the hearing examiner reevaluated the entire case and awarded the tenants $17,496.71. In awarding that amount of money, the hearing examiner relied on some prior documents the landlord had submitted into the record in the original case. After reviewing the hearing examiner's decision and re-reviewing the old record, which was, as a side note, beyond the scope of the remand, because the remand limited the review to the new evidence in the record, but went ahead and reviewed the old record. My recommendation remains unchanged from what it was back in November. The posture of this case remains unchanged. The tenants still haven't submitted evidence establishing base rent. And because of that, my recommendation is to reverse the hearing examiner's award down to zero. That, again, does not touch that $12,300 and something dollars award. That award is still there for the tenants. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, General Counsel Oshanuga. Are there any questions or responses from members of the board? I have one just fact question. It might be premature. Are you able to confirm that interpretation was provided at the last rent board meeting and also at the original hearing or both hearings?
Okay, yes, it was. Thank you.
Any further questions or responses from the board? We will now hear from the parties. Appellant will present first and then respondent. Appellant, you have 10 minutes and I'll be keeping time.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairperson Tipton, Vice Chair Cantor, and members of the board. Please excuse me, I have some really bad allergies, so my voice may be a little raspy. But my name is Andrew Gabriel, and I'm an attorney for the appellants in the matter, Anselmo Ocampo and Ada Ocampo. We are joined here again on a second appeal of the previously referenced rent board petition. Now, in advance of this hearing, my office did prepare some correspondence for the board, but I'll be going over just briefly a summary of where we are in this matter. The root of the issue is whether tenants have satisfied their burden of establishing the base rent at the time mentioned in the petition. Previously, the board went a different direction to council's recommendation and afforded tenants an opportunity to supplement additional information, additional evidence onto the record for the hearing examiner's consideration. This is different than general counsel's opinion at the time, which was the same as today, to reverse the hearing examiner's opinion. Now, the board allowed the record to be reopened for 30 days, at which time tenants did not afford additional evidence to establish what the base rent was. Hence the reason why landlords did not submit rebuttal evidence, because there was no evidence to rebut at the time. And like I said, neither party had submitted additional evidence for consideration. Oh, my apologies. And neither party had submitted additional evidence within the timeline prescribed by the board. Rather, the hearing examiner continued with their analysis based on the same flawed evidence, which was wrought with inconsistency, unverified statements, and other evidentiary issues previously mentioned in counsel's recommendations. Despite this, the hearing examiner still awarded tenants with $17,496.71. At this time, appellants agree with the City of Richmond's General Counsel's recommendations. Tenants do bear the burden to prove that they have overpaid rents above the maximum allowable rent rate. That burden has not been met. The board has gone, the board has gone through great lengths to accommodate respondents with an opportunity to supplement their evidence in contrary to general counsel's recommendations. The window to afford additional evidence has since been closed, and we are still in the same place we were in our last rent board appeal hearing. Appellants request that the rent board adopt counsel's recommendation and reverse the findings of the hearing examiner. There was also mention of the confirmed award of $12,000 and some odd dollars. Rest assured that the rent board that the parties have already reached an agreement in regards to that, and it is essentially in the process of being satisfied vis-a-vis rent credits. So appellants are honoring the awards that have been affirmed, but we do still wish the rent board to adopt general counsel's opinion as to this portion of the rent award. Thank you.
Respondent, you have 14 minutes to reply.
Okay. No entiendo por qué el abogado dice que no tenemos las pruebas suficientes. Si en la mediación que fuimos se reunió todo, el mediador que tuvimos, él tiene todas las pruebas que nosotros pusimos y ellos también las tienen. Okay.
Is there a microphone?
Sorry. I don't know why the attorney is saying this. He has all the proof and evidence that we've submitted that previously.
Ellos tienen las pruebas suficientes y saben que las pruebas que se entregaron fueron reales. El mediador que tuvimos revisó todo, continuo, y él dio una orden.
The reason is I'm saying that is that the mediator received everything and all the evidence was brought upon him. I don't know why they're saying that the evidence wasn't submitted. That's what we reviewed.
Y cada prueba que entregamos la revisó. El abogado también la revisó.
And all the proof was received by the attorney as well, everything that we submitted.
El mediador le dijo al dueño que no quería volver a saber sobre este asunto porque el asunto ya estaba cerrado.
The mediator told me that all the information that you had received and was submitted, that they were going to close the case.
El abogado y el dueño quedaron de acuerdo.
The attorney and the owner were satisfied.
Y claramente se le dijo al dueño que si él seguía revocando la demanda, él tenía que pagar una corte para asistir él con nosotros y con las pruebas que están.
And the owner would have to, if he wasn't in agreeing with the information that had received, that he would have to open a case to be able to review everything because we had submitted everything in a timely.
Se entregaron las pruebas suficientes de todo lo que el dueño hacía hacia con nosotros y en la propiedad. Se entregaron las pruebas suficientes de lo que el dueño estaba haciendo en la propiedad y con nosotros.
We turned in everything, all the documents of what the owner was doing and the evidence to hold that.
Él tiene todo y si ustedes gustan, nosotros pensamos que el proceso había terminado, por eso no volvimos a poner las pruebas con ustedes.
We submitted everything and the owner has everything. We did it in a timely manner. That's why we didn't do anything else after the time because we had submitted everything.
Pero en la última cita que tuvimos con el mediador, se mostraron fotos, videos.
In the last appointment that we had with the mediator, we showed them pictures, videos.
donde el dueño aceptó que él estaba mal. Ahora no entiendo por qué está diciendo que no.
And that the owner was at fault, and he admitted he was at fault then. That's why I don't understand why we're still reviewing this.
Y si él quiere que tengamos otra vez las pruebas aquí, podemos pedirlas con el mediador, las que dimos con él.
If he would like, we could bring all the proof and evidence here with the mediator so he could review it again if you need to see him.
Es todo.
And that's all.
Thank you. Appellants, 4 more minutes to close.
Thank you. Just briefly, I'm not entirely clear or understanding what respondent is referring to. Emails and notification was sent to all parties announcing the formal reopening of the record. My office did not receive any additional information during the reopening of the record. To my knowledge, and based on the representations by the hearing examiner and the city's council, the city has not received any additional evidence during the time period referenced by during the time period where the record was reopened. And so on those grounds, I would simply request that the rent board adopt the general counsel's recommendation. Unless there was evidence that was not provided to appellants, which as a counsel for appellants, can affirm that we have not received any such evidence. Nothing has changed in regards to this rent board petition. With full transparency, there was a subsequent rent board petition that was filed and has since been settled. But in terms of timeline, the rent board at the time explicitly stated that this matter had to go through the process first before that subsequent rent examination occurred. The record was reopened for 30 days. The hearing examiner opened the record, closed the record, issued an opinion on it, and then at that point, the second petition was heard in accordance with the rent board's requirements. And so in terms of timeline, I'm not sure. I don't want to put words in respondents' mouth in regards to this, but there is a chance they could be conflating the subsequent petition with this particular appeal. Because, again, if I recall correctly, because I was there during the subsequent rent board petition, the evidence and testimony and documentation that was for that subsequent petition did not have any relation to establishing the base rent as is appealed in this particular appeal. And so that's the only interpretation I can reasonably make based on respondents' representations. But overall, no additional evidence has been provided during the reopening of this record. Therefore, no rebuttal evidence was provided, and we still stand firm and request the board to adopt council's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you to both of the parties. Are there questions or responses from members of the board? Yes, Melvin.
Because I don't want to make any assumptions to general counsel, I did want to know, when you're looking at establishing the base rent, exactly what were you looking for to establish that, and what specifically did they fail to provide that would help make that easier?
You look for documents, specifically documents, that's just rent board precedent, and they didn't have any documents. In the first case, they testified that the base rent, it's been a while, so I might get this wrong, but let me just paraphrase it like this to make sure it's accurate. They gave 3 separate base rents as per their testimony, each one conflicting with another, which obviously establishes that they don't know what their base rent was. But specifically in prior cases and adhering to our precedent, we typically require documents, and that would be either rent receipts, which sometimes it's impossible because landlords don't give them. Oftentimes, they can be bank statements. They can even be witness corroborating testimony. You bring your friend in who might help you pay rent or things like that. They didn't have any of that. So the rent board in this specific case ordered that the record be reopened and that they be allowed to submit documents only to establish a base rent, and they failed to submit any documents.
And potentially a dumb question, but usually whenever when somebody registers their property with the rent program or submits anything saying they're going to do a new rent increase, like, is there any record of this property having like an initial base rent already that's part of our records, or was the onus on the landlord and tenants to submit those on their own?
That's not a dumb question. That's a good question. And this is an actively enforced program. And ordinarily, what you would see is the program having everyone's base rent who's under rent control. That way, base rent's not an issue. Typically, base rent is not determined at hearings for as you can see, this reason. You're limited by a lot of rules in hearings because of due process. So if you failed to establish, to meet your evidentiary burden, you just won't be able to establish your base rent. Whereas the program can go back and forth with the landlord and a tenant as long as they want. There's nothing prohibiting the discussion until they are satisfied with the numbers that they arrive at. In this case, we did not have base rent information. The program is still trying to ramp up getting everyone's base rent information. So to answer your second part, it's not really a failure of either the tenant or the landlord. I think the program is still working on getting those requests out to make sure we get that information. And regardless of how this matter goes, how you vote, it's still our responsibility as a program to reach out to both landlord and tenant to make sure the base rents are accurate.
Thank you. And final question for now. To the tenants, you mentioned that you submitted everything to the hearing examiner, that they had the evidence. What exactly did you, what type of documentation did you submit to the hearing examiner?
Yo tengo una pregunta para el abogado.
I have a question for the attorney.
¿Por qué el abogado dice que no sabe de qué estoy hablando si el dueño, el abogado, mi esposo y yo firmamos un acuerdo donde ellos estaban de acuerdo con las pruebas que se presentaron y que eran reales?
Why does the
En la
attorney say
mediación.
that he's not aware of anything? Because the owner, my husband, and myself, we signed an agreement about everything that we presented him, and he was in agreeing with that information.
El papel existe, lo tiene el mediador en la mediación que tuvimos. Ahí se quedó de acuerdo y firmamos los 4 que estábamos de acuerdo con todo. No entiendo por qué dice que no sabe.
I don't know why he says no, because the 4 of us signed a document that we were all in agreeing with everything that was presented.
Y
The
también,
mediator had it.
y también yo creo que por ejemplo, cuando nos pidieron todas las pruebas, como la renta base, esa no la teníamos porque cuando comenzamos a vivir en la casa, siempre pagábamos en efectivo y nunca recibimos ningún recibo de
And I
parte de
want you to know that also the rent base, we don't have proof of that because we paid it in cash. So we don't have an actual receipt that would show you how much we paid when we had the rent base.
Y en el acuerdo que tuvimos en la mediación,
And in the agreement that we had,
volvió a subir la renta,
he also increased the rent.
donde nosotros estuvimos de acuerdo porque fue lo que es la ley.
And we were in agreeing with that increase of the rent because that is the law.
todas las pruebas que sometí yo a la ciudad de Richmond,
And all the proof or evidence that I submitted to the city of Richmond.
fue cuando comenzamos a pagarle con Zelle al señor.
And that was when we started paying him. Oh, via Zelle.
Esas pruebas son por ejemplo, los statements del banco.
Bank statements, that was some of the proof that we had.
Y por eso es de que ya no sometimos más pruebas cuando nos pidieron, porque ya no teníamos, eran los únicos que teníamos del año que nos estaban pidiendo.
And it was for the year that they wanted the bank statement, so they had proof of what we had paid for. That's why we didn't submit it again.
Pero sí, el error que cometimos es de que nunca pedimos ningún recibo.
Our error here was that we never asked for a receipt of the money that we're paying for rent.
Es todo.
That's all.
If I may, Chair, just a quick statement. So a lot of what was said is outside of the scope of this decision. I'm unaware, but because it's been said, maybe it's appropriate for me just to give some context. Apparently, I don't know, I'm unaware of this. I don't get involved in the cases unless they're appealed. But apparently, it seems that there was a subsequent case filed after the first case you heard. And so there might be some confusion there. I think the tenant was suggesting that there was an agreement that was signed. Again, I don't know because I don't get involved on that level, but there might have been, and there might have been an agreement where the base rent was actually established in that agreement. Again, I don't know, but it's kind of what I picked up from that. It doesn't impact the outcome of this case. That's why it's not good to hear outside evidence because it's going to confuse a lot of things. It doesn't impact the outcome of this case. And yeah, so that's what I'll say about those statements.
I had two questions. One might raise this same confusion if there are multiple proceedings. But this is a question for respondents. So when you say you turned over everything that you have, you turned that over before the first hearing, not after the case went back on remand. At that point, you didn't give anything new because you'd already given everything you had. Did I understand that correctly?
Sí, es correcto. Eso lo entregamos desde a la segunda audiencia que tuvimos.
Yes, that's correct. We did in the second hearing we had.
Okay. I wanted to make sure the record wasn't missing material that you say you gave. And then my second question, I think, is for General Counsel, which is, we've got this odd problem of the hearing examiner sort of going outside the scope of the remand and re-reviewing the whole case, which is sort of its own situation. But if there was no new evidence presented on remand, I'm just curious, what was the basis for the change in opinion?
Yeah, there is a decision written by the hearing examiner. I read it. Obviously, it's I don't want to disparage anyone's work, so I will just say I can't really confirm what the basis was. It was tough for me to understand.
But it sounds like it was maybe mostly limited to calculate like different math, basically. There were no new facts.
There were no new facts. There was a lot of speculation. I mean, I'll just give you an example. The landlord submitted, in the first case, the landlord submitted their evidence to counter the tenant's evidence. The tenants asserted that they had paid rent on time all the time. The landlord submitted some bank statements showing that the deposits were short rent. And there were cash deposits that the landlord had submitted, evidence of cash deposits that the landlord makes into a bank. And these cash deposits are a lot of money. They're like $40,000. The hearing examiner somehow extrapolated that part of that cash deposit contained the tenant's rent payments. But based on the evidence, it was impossible to reach that conclusion because there's nothing there's not a line item per cash deposit. It's just one big cash deposit. So.
And that was evidence that was there.
That prior, right? Yeah.
So looking at page 5 of the hearing examiner's updated proposal, I see in section 2, paragraph 5, section 2, paragraph 2. The second document supporting a rent payment by the tenants is a Zelle payment from the tenant to the landlord on December 3rd, 2019, in the amount of $1,800. The landlord testified that the tenants never paid rent in cash. Therefore, the rent paid for December 2019 must have been $1,800 per month. And then I see that the hearing examiner is then using 1,800 as the initial supported and documented rent, which was what we had asked in our remanding back, was for the base rent to be calculated as the earliest possible rent that could be fully substantiated by the evidence. And so while there is reference to a cash deposit in the paragraph above, I do see reference to a to something that was submitted, I believe, by the tenant. This was evidence that was submitted in the initial evidentiary period by the tenant, and that is the basis of the kind of calculation of the maximum allowable rent.
Right. So that amount. So again, that's evidence. So the landlord submitted evidence to demonstrate that the tenants were not paying rent, or were late on rent, or short on rent. And that was evidence submitted by the landlord to show that the tenants were short on rent. The following month, I think in January of the next year, because that's a December payment, I think in January of the next year, there's a $2,000 payment. And then in February, there's a $1,500 payment, and throughout that year, there's $1,500 payments throughout the whole year. And when I reviewed this the first time, because this was part of the record the first time, and I reviewed it in the full context of the record, that evidence was, that $1,800 was offered to prove that amount was not the correct amount of rent payment. So it's odd. So it seems like an unreasonable inference to show that amount of payment was actually the correct rent, when the landlord is the only person submitting it to show that it's the incorrect amount. That's why I didn't rely on that number.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding, so the Zelle payment was submitted by the landlord, not by the tenant?
The evidence of the Zelle payment.
The evidence of the Zelle payment was submitted by the landlord?
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Si no entendí mal, ellos dijeron que no habían entendido que su caso seguía abierto.
No, if I didn't understand well, that they did not know that their case was still open.
¿Alguien les explicó en la última audiencia que el caso seguía abierto?
Did anybody explain to them in the last hearing that their case was still open?
I don't know if anyone directly spoke to the tenants, but I can tell you what I did and what Ms. Shaw did is after every rent board hearing, I go back to the office and I type up 2 documents. One document is called Decision on Appeal, and that's a short summary of what the rent board's decision was on appeal. And the other document is called Rent Board Order, and that's a description line by line of what the rent board instructed the parties to do. And that should be part of it should be in your, I'm not sure if it attached it here, but it's definitely in the record. And so that document offers an explanation to the parties of what the rent board is expecting them to do. And apparently it's translated. It's always translated. There might have been, like I said earlier, there might have been some confusion because there was a second case filed, and I think maybe the tenants thought that's where the evidence belonged, and not in this case. And again, it sounds like the base rent in that case might have been established. I'm not entirely sure. But that, I can see how you can get confused if you have that many pieces moving around.
But I'm hearing that the reason that no additional material was given on remand was because you felt like you had given everything that you had the first time around. Okay,
Correcto.
That's
Thank you.
correct.
thank you.
Gracias.
Any further questions or remarks from the board? And there are no public speakers?
There are no speakers on this item.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the general counsel's recommendation. Is that an acceptable motion, or do I need to specify?
Oh, no, that's all you need to say.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I'll move to accept general
Yes.
counsel's recommendation.
Okay,
second
motion
it.
by Vice Chair Cantor.
I'll second.
Oh, hear you. Second by Board Member Willis. Take a vote. Board Member Espinoza,
Yes.
Board Member Willis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cantor,
Yes.
and Chair Tipton.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes to accept, to approve the General Counsel's recommendation on appeal, remand. Motion passes with Board Member Height absent. To the parties, I just want to let you know, are we going to write a decision or anything for this one, or?
The same thing.
Same thing? Okay. I just want to let you know that this concludes the hearing. The board approved the recommendation. Okay? This concludes the hearing, and then all parties will receive a decision within 30 days.
Thank you.
Okay? Did you want to say anything else to the parties to make sure they got it and understand that they appealed the they approved the recommendation?
No, but I mean, to the rent board, I will let you all know that I will review that settlement. I don't review settlement agreements. It's already been signed, so can't do anything about that. But I will review it to make sure that that there's some kind of base rent in there. And if there's not, I will make sure I work with Nick and Fred to work on the base rent.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Thank you.
Es que también tomen en cuenta que él siempre subió la renta.
Check.
You gonna come here, or you gonna stay over there? You want to read it? Oh, yeah, I'm gonna read it. Okay, we're now moving to item H1 under presentation and proclamation. Item H1 is to receive a presentation honoring past rent board members with a brief ceremony to present individual proclamations of appreciation and a plaque displaying former board member names and terms. There is one speaker on this item.
Thank you, and we will first hear the staff report.
Good evening, Chair Tipton and members of the Rent Board and attendees. Nicholas Traylor here. Thank you. So first of all, let me thank staff for their efforts coordinating this agenda item. It took many months to get through not only the resolution, but just designing the proclamations themselves. So thank you for all your efforts, again, staff. So the rent program could not do its important work without the dedication, wisdom, and service of our rent board members, past and present. Tonight, we pause to celebrate the contributions of former board members who dedicated their time, energy, and expertise to guiding the program and serving the residents of Richmond. So at this time, I would like to invite former board members. We have two of them here today, and they are at the front, so thank you. And now I would like the board clerk to read out the names and terms of former board members.
Okay. Well, on behalf of myself, it's been a pleasure working with you all in the past. I started when you started, some of you. So, yeah, so I appreciate you working with me and guiding me along the way. So I'm going to read the list by first name. Alana Grice Connor, her term was 2019 through 2023. Carol Johnson, her term was 2021 through 2023. Camiola Duncan, her term was 2019 through 2021. David Gray, he was the first rent board chair. His term was from 2017 through 2019. Elaine Dawkins, her term was 2023 through 2025. Emma Gerald served as our first rent board vice chair, 2017 through 2021. Karina Guadalupe, she also served as vice chair, 2023 through 2024. Lauren Maddock also served as rent board chair. She was from 2017 through 2021. Michael Vasilis, his term was from 2021 through 2023. Nancy Combs was from 2017 through 2019. Shiva Mishek, she also served as vice chair. She was from 2021 through 2023. And Miss Virginia Finley, she served as our board chair as well from her term is 2017 through 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
All right, so just a couple more remarks, and then we'll hand out the proclamations. So, as I mentioned, serving on the rent board is no small task. The work requires long hours reviewing policies, listening to community members, making thoughtful and sometimes difficult decisions, and at the same time always keeping in mind the mission of the rent program and the purpose of the rent ordinance. So each of our past board members brought unique strengths to the board. Some in the early stages of the agency helped shape our early policies. They built essentially the foundation of the program. Others helped us through some real challenging times of growth and change, particularly during the pandemic. Together, board members, former board members, have left a legacy of fairness, compassion, and accountability. And before we hand out the proclamations of appreciation, I would like to present the perpetual plaque, which is right in the front here, that lists all of the past board members honored today. Feel free to take a look after the board meeting. We will be displaying this plaque in a designated area of the rent program office. So before we present the proclamations, are there any past board members that are in the audience today? And if so, please come forward.
You have to stand in the middle here for the sake of the video. If you guys can go.
Okay. You have to do that.
So it's going to go first.
So let's start with the.
Which one?
Jim.
Okay.
Okay. So, excuse me.
We have a photo too. Well, you gotta come up. You got it? Okay.
So, two former board member and Chair Finley, and former board member and Vice Chair Giroud, as a small token of our appreciation, and on behalf of the City of Richmond and the Rent Program, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for your service. Thank you. So I'm wondering if the honorees would like to share a couple of words. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, you have the floor.
It was a pleasure serving with each of you. Thank you so much. After a number of years in the city, I learned as much from you as I hope you learned from me. And I wish you all the best. This is a wonderful opportunity for you. Melvin, you've had years on the city council. It changed a little differently. I did my service, if you will, on the planning commission. So I'm filled with gratitude that you're willing to take on this burden. But it's also a joy because it's what works for the city. So thank you all. Thank you for this. I am a little amazed. And now I give it to you, Emma.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to receive this award or whatever it is. Proclamation.
Still work.
Yeah, it's really hard work being a board member. And so, I appreciate all the work that you all are doing. We were in your shoes during the first iteration of the rent board, and there was a lot of work to do, including the writing of all the regulations and I think I'm hopeful that you and, the citizens of City of Richmond have reaped the fruits of that labor at this point. And it was definitely not boring. But I really enjoyed it and I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for this. Yeah.
What makes a great board is not only the board members, but the staff. And we were so blessed to have had the wisdom to hire Mr. What is your name, Nicholas? And he had the wisdom to hire Mr. Oshanuga.
That's true. Yeah.
And then again, he had the wisdom to hire Fred, as well as the staff that supported us all. Without the staff, we would still be wandering in the wilderness, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we are grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So once again, thank you for your dedication and service to the Rent Board and Rent Program and City of Richmond. Your legacy continues in the work that is done today. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Nick, for that presentation. Are there questions or additional comments from the current board? I'll just quickly echo what several people said, which I'm relatively new to the board. I think we're on month 7 here, maybe. And it's been a very easy position to step into. Every member of staff has blown me away. It's just been extraordinarily competent and ethical and a joy to get to work with so far. And I think that's a great credit, certainly to the day-to-day work of the current staff, but also to the former board members, and particularly those of you who really did the heavy lifting in the first years and laid the groundwork for what is, I think, really an extraordinary office. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo all of that and specifically comment on the work that you all did in building the regulations. They are so thorough and extensive that, even we got this whole binder here. It takes a while to get through even reading them all, much less overseeing the creation of them and making decisions about what goes in there. That is that kind of foundational work has really laid the groundwork for us to be able to step into our roles as they are already predefined, thanks to the work that you did, and so we can serve ethically and effectively based on the guidelines that you all created and also the precedent that you set in your time here. So thank you so much.
And I'll add on to the thank yous and say thank you for enduring the growing pains of a brand new program in the city of Richmond. I can say just having the amount of times I've had to come to the program when coming across a community issue or, somebody was going through something and there was a lot of confusion. It's one thing to have a program, it's another to actually see it implemented well. And you all and past board members implemented this program well to where it is a good resource, and it continues to grow as a great resource for everybody in the city of Richmond. So I do thank you for your time, your volunteerism, and dedication just to doing the right thing and making sure that this is a great and ethical program we have here. So thank you for all your work, and see you at your next board meetings. I know this ain't the end of your leadership.
And if there are no further questions or comments, are there any public speakers?
Yes, we have one public speaker, Mr. Cordell Hindler. You have 4 minutes to address the board.
Thank you, Clerk. So good evening, Chair Tipton, board members. I am Cordell Henlon. I was the one that, let me rephrase that. I am the one who offered to put this on the agenda, so I should get some credit as well, too. So thank you. So to our guest of honor, Virginia, you made this, being the chair of the rent board, made it so easy. I mean, you was relaxed, cool, and it's like, wow, she knows what she's talking about. So I'm very honored to keep coming to the rent board meetings as it came forward. So let's see, and that's just pretty much it.
That was the only speaker, the last speaker.
Is there a motion?
Oh, I guess
need a
that you
motion.
just received it.
We've received it.
You received it. That's it. Okay, so we'll go to our next item on the agenda is reports of officers.
There are no reports of officers tonight. Thank you.
All right.
Fabulous. Meeting adjourned at 6:13 p.m.
Thank you.